share that I shared that with my staff already and quoted you. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
That was beautiful. We're doing it in real time. Hey everybody, Felicia Griffin. I'm the Deputy Director for the Partnership for Working Families. And I'm part of NLLI Lucky Number 7. I have to say that first. Our organization, we're a national organization. We have about 15 staff and 20 affiliates across the country. For those of you that don't know, we work on building worker power, building cleaner, greener, and more equitable cities across the country. And so for us, you know, I really, a lot that Nicole has already said, and also the stuff that Kathleen has already taught us. And I just want to really appreciate you, Kathleen, you know, because I think I've been using different words for high alert and shut down, and really connecting fight and flight with those things really gives us language to talk about what's happening with our folks. So it's something that I'm definitely taking away from this call. But for our organization, when the crisis first hit, we went into crisis campaign mode. So you can imagine any fight that you've been in with the boss, or, you know, for us fighting corporations like Amazon or any of the big fund companies, right? We just went into fight mode, because that's what we do. That's what our movement does. That's our strategy, one of our big strategies. And so we're organizing our affiliates and gathering data and research, and really moving way too fast to even truly understand the severity of the moment. You know, there was no manual, there was no one on staff who had experience doing movement work in a pandemic. And so we were really applying our old strategies, you know, and they weren't guaranteed to work to the situation and to the crisis. And so, you know, I don't even think we realized in those first moments that we were about to really enter the fight for our very lives, right? That, you know, none of us had been here before, and that this is a fight for our lives and our communities' lives and our families' lives. And so, you know, we were just on automatic pilot. So definitely in the high alert area. One of the things that we did very early on in that kind of frenzy that's still working today is set up a structure to support our entire organization. So basically we have 5 COVID committees. We have an internal committee that's made up of our leadership team, who is in constant assessment of what the staff needs. So assessing our financial needs. We have internal COVID protocols that we update every 2 weeks. And it's been really great to update them every 2 weeks. I would say if you've done a protocol for your organization, you should update it. You know, our initial protocol, just to give an example, our initial protocol prohibited one-on-one meetings in person, right? As I'm sure yours does as well. But we, in this last update, just gave our staff the ability to participate in car actions, right? So really making sure that we're connecting, you know, the changing landscape with the protocols and policies that we're making for our staffs. We have a comms team, and that's, you know, we really needed to shift our messaging frames to one that includes COVID. And also we needed to amplify all of the worker strikes and policy fights that our affiliates across the country were leading. So we really moved any other work off of the comms plate and really began shifting all of our comms work to being COVID connected. We also have an affiliate support team that's focused on supporting affiliate campaigns. We have 3 lawyers in our legal department, and they are at full capacity, right? Reviewing policies and bills and legislation. And so, you know, that was an immediate need that folks on the ground had. We also do the other side of supporting people, right? We provide coaching. We have a coach on staff that can coach not just leadership, but, you know, staff that are dealing with stuff. She can do one-time coaching or continued coaching, and that's been really helpful. And then we do, and if you haven't attended Kathleen's grounding, I'm going to tell you you're missing something, like really connecting yourself, your mind, and your body, and taking that time to stop and slow down and really see what's happening in your body has been great. We do one for our network on every Wednesday, and folks are just like, this is wonderful. Like, I want to be in that space. I need that space. And so people come and go as they need it. But again, if you haven't done that, you definitely should. And also we built two other teams, right? We had a national and a local team. And, you know, our role as a national organization is trying to figure out how we rebuild and not just respond in the moment, but how the work we are doing right now is building for the future. And also taking advantage of all the opportunities that we have with folks that didn't understand how important paid family leave or all of the policies that we fight for every day were until now they're needing them and they don't have them. So for us, really thinking about definitely being responsive in the moment, right? People are in deep need right now, but really trying to pivot and think about how we take advantage of opportunities today that will impact lives of workers and families well into the future. We've also learned that building resilience for our staff in the moment, and Nicole talked a lot about this, so I won't read all the notes that I had for it, but understanding and how folks respond to crisis and that people respond in many different ways. And Kathleen said this, right? Like folks are living under multiple sets of crisis, right? One partner might have lost their employment. You know, there's no childcare open, so having to work and do your childcare, struggling to pay bills or even fill your pantry with food or provide the basics. And then what we've had hit us already is staff that have close family members in their homes that have been diagnosed with the virus. So, you know, as Nicole said, the leaders in our organizations really need to understand that we are not working or moving at 100%, and that is normal and it's okay, right? And then sometimes it's really been interesting. We've also had staff that are up all night and it feels like they're up all morning because you're getting messages because they're really in high alert and really producing. So you also have those times where, you know, folks are really in high production mode and getting things done. But we just need to be okay with, you know, both from high alert all the way down to shut down. I will say one of the most important protocols that we have done is reducing the work week to 30 hours. And as Nicole said, right, what works for me might not work for you. So making sure that staff have the ability to program those 30 hours any way that they need, right? So if they want to work a 4-day week, they can do that. If they're, you know, they're doing the teacher session in the morning with their kids and they want to start at noon, they can do that. So really just giving staff the power and ability to schedule their day. You know, the only thing we ask in return is just really clear communication on their calendar about when they're out so that, you know, other work can move. And I would say connected to that is the protocol of, the protocol of just increasing the amount of communication that you're doing. So over communicating in this time is really important. I'll also share really quickly that we do COVID huddles. We used to do them daily. We only now do them 2 or 3 times a week. So really building a space for communication. And then the last thing I'll say is that we as leaders need to model, right? If you're working 50 and 60 hours a week, it's hard for folks that you're supervising to do a 30-hour work week. So we need to lead in this area. And I will turn it back over to Kathleen.
You're muted.
Okay. I did it. I did that thing that we make fun of people for doing. I'm turning it over to Hanad, and I just wanted to point out, like, you know, we wanted to have people from a lot of different kinds of organizations and whose members and staff are experiencing the crisis in different places. And so there's an intentionality behind having a union, an organization that's a network, and now we're going to hear about a global organization with, you know, just like a kind of unthinkable extra dimensions in terms of how you manage what your staff need and also how you stay keeping the work moving forward. So Hanad, I'll mute myself again now and you take it away.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Good afternoon, sisters, brothers, and comrades. My name is Hanad Mohamud, and I'm from the Solidarity Center. We're a global organization created by the AFL-CIO to provide international solidarity to trade union organizations around the world. So our staff operate across 11 different time zones. There's over 200 of them, and we're operating in over 60 countries. And the way we understood this challenge at the beginning of this pandemic was that, you know, the world literally changed. This pandemic brought about a new normal, however temporary it may be, hopefully. And for us, there was a very early realization that that new normal would have profound impacts on the way we work, the resilience of not just our organization, but the unions that we work with around the world, and the economies within which they find themselves in. So in approaching this moment institutionally, I think one of the things we did pretty early is realize that there is a direct relationship between institutional or organizational resilience and the resilience of staff. As an institution, as an organization, we are our people. And so what does that mean? And that led, I think, to some sort of, I think, important realizations and decisions. First of which is that, you know, we were deliberate about deciding that, you know, we're going to have to be able to conform or calibrate to people's realities, as opposed to having folks conform to what the things we want are as leaders in an institution. And that sort of is a shift, because the operating norm had been people would adjust to what the work expectations are, as opposed to what the work expectations adjusting to people's realities. And I think that's one step that we took pretty early that, you know, put us in a whole different mindset. Another is in the area of sort of focusing on staff care. I mean, there was a kind of a realization that you had to be not just a leader that manages work, but that is actually even more in tune with the state of mind and the state of emotion of the people who do the work. So even as you're calibrating and adjusting to their reality, that doesn't absolve you of the responsibility of staying in tune with how they're doing and having sort of a social worker's eye. And a couple of ways of doing that. One, very formally, you know, in a supervisor-employee sort of a relationship. But the other is being a little bit more deliberate about identifying who informal leaders within your team are that would keep tabs on folks in your team, probably because they've been there a while or have established relationships with other members of your team. Just the recognition that, you know, that social worker's eye is not limited to you as a leader, but to be able to identify who else on your team is able to have a similar eye on other members of the team. You know, one other thing that I think we sort of kind of recognized is in a moment like this, different skills are highlighted that come out. You know, someone who, I guess I'll just use myself as an example. I tend to draw energy from crowds and people, and I tend to function better in a group setting, and maybe not so well, you know, in remote or in isolation. Just being conscious of that in this moment, team members and staff members would have different skills that would come to the forefront. And so even in the midst of this pandemic, even in the midst of all the social upheaval, the institutional upheaval you may be going through, there may be people pretty well equipped to function in this manner. Or you may, you know, see a situation where if you create the space, those folks may actually thrive working in this manner. And just being conscious of that, not expecting, you know, what you saw going into the pandemic, what the state of people's creativity or engagement or energy was, just assuming that that's their limitation, and actually being open to the possibility that in the midst of this pandemic, there could be folks who working in this manner could actually excel and thereby contribute to the success of your organization. But also being recognizing that there may be people who may not be their most efficient self, right, in this moment, who you may have seen before as being very high performers, and then are wondering, well, what happened to so-and-so? You know, they were a very high performer, and then all of a sudden, they're not their most efficient self. And I think something we did very early, and something our executive director said quite often, is that we're not always going to be the most efficient. Just accepting the fact that we're not in a moment where we would necessarily be our most efficient selves. And as leaders, kind of recognizing that also amongst your staff, that some of your, high performing, energetic staff may not be that anymore, and that's okay. So that was another sort of realization that we did as an institution. Look, one last thing I want to say is we've also taken an approach where our decisions would be based on actual science and not politics. We went to a remote work situation very early. Our first and primary concern was the physical well-being of our staff, but then going into the deeper care issues that social worker Aya was talking about. But we made the decision very early that we would not blindly follow what we're being told about reopening or other things, but that we would have science-based decisions and actually set up a committee, a small structure of about 3 senior leaders within our organization who just kept an eye on the science and the information coming out, and ensured that, that is what informed what we did with our operations, what we did with our staff, and the decisions that we made. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hanad.